everyone. Welcome to our session on Debate Like a CEO using business strategies in arguments. I'm Jaisshna and I'm really excited to be here with you all today. We're going to be exploring how applying business tactics can elevate your debating skills. I'm also thrilled to be co hosting this session with my friend Nasser, who will be sharing his insights along the way. Together, we'll guide you through understanding how strategic thinking, persuasive communication, and resilience, qualities that every CEO needs, can enhance your ability to debate effectively. CEOs are masters of decision making and influence. Similarly, in debates, it's about how well you frame your arguments, handle challenges, and persuade audience. So let's dive right in and learn how to debate like a CEO. Next slide. Now that we've set the stage, let's take a quick look at what we'll be covering today. We'll start by exploring what makes a CEO a great communicator, how their leadership and speaking skills set them apart. Then we'll draw connections between business strategies and debating to see how those two overlap. Next, we'll dive into the SWOT approach. It's a powerful tool used by businesses that you can apply to debates. After that, we'll discuss risk versus reward, learning to weigh your arguments strategically. We'll then shift our focus to persuasion tactics and how CEOs negotiate their way through challenges, followed by actual business negotiation techniques that can help you become an even more convincing debater. We also have an exciting case study to break down the real world scenarios, and we'll finish with tips on handling tough questions, just like CEOs in press conferences. Finally, we'll wrap up with key takeaways and an open Q&A session. Feel free to jot down any questions or thoughts you might have as we go along. I'm excited to get started, so let's jump right in. Next slide. Let's begin by understanding what sets great CEOs apart when it comes to communication. CEOs aren't just leaders of companies, they're often the face of the organization. Every word they say, it can influence stock prices, investor confidence, and public perception. But what exactly makes them stand out as communicators? Firstly, it's their ability to think strategically. CEOs don't just speak for the sake of speaking. Every message they convey is intentional, whether it's addressing a crisis, motivating employees, or even pitching to investors. Their words are carefully chosen to serve a particular purpose. Similarly, in a debate, every argument you present must have a clear objective. Are you trying to persuade the judge? Are you trying to counter an argument or strengthen your credibility? Thinking through your words through a strategic mindset is key. Second, CEOs excel at clarity and simplicity. Have you ever noticed how these great leaders explain even the most complex ideas in a way that's so easy to understand? That's not just by accident. They break down the most intricate topics into digestible pieces. Likewise, in a debate, no matter how advanced your knowledge is, your argument must be clear and accessible. If your audience cannot follow through what you're reasoning, they will not be convinced. Another crucial skill is emotional intelligence. The best CEOs know how to read the room. They understand when to be firm, when to show empathy, and when to inspire. This emotional awareness helps them connect with their audience at a personal level. As a debater, developing this skill means recognizing when to appeal to logic, when to evoke emotion, and how to adapt your tone depending on the argument at hand. Then we have confidence and presence. CEOs often face the most difficult questions in press conferences and shareholder meetings. But no matter the situation, they maintain composure. They speak with certainty even when addressing tough topics. In debates, this translates to how you carry yourself, your tone of voice, your body language, and your eye contact. All of this convey confidence. When you speak with conviction, people are more likely to believe in your argument. Lastly, CEOs are skilled at handling pressure, whether they're addressing a crisis or even public scrutiny. They remain calm, they remain composed. They listen carefully, they respond thoughtfully, and never let their emotions get the best of them. In debates, the same applies. When you face difficult questions or strong opposition, staying composed and responding logically can turn the tide in your favor. So, when we ask what makes a CEO a great communicator, it's a combination of strategic thinking, clarity, emotional intelligence, confidence, storytelling, and resilience. Let's move on and see how these business strategies apply directly to debating.
Well, hello everyone. Now, as we named this session "Debate Like a CEO," when we say CEO, we're definitely talking about business owners, organization owners, company owners, and all of that. And similar to debates, businesses have a lot of things that require skill and require practice for you to be able to succeed in the field. And debating and business have two things. I have actually multiple things in common, as you can see in these slides. The first thing is strategic thinking. To be able to win a debate, you need to be a good strategic thinker. You need to analyze the arguments. You need to be able you need to be a good listener. You need to be you need to comprehend what's going on, and you need to come up with solutions. You need to be quick. You need to act quick. And the same applies on business owners. When you are negotiating something, you need to be quick. You need to make the right decision. You need to consider all the possibilities and all the chances. Therefore, you can guarantee succeed in your business. The second thing is risk and reward. You can't get the reward without taking the risks. The same thing applies on debates, and both the debates and the businesses. In business, for example, we need to get into complex negotiations with people that are probably in higher positions than us, but that's the risk. But if you win, you'll get the reward. The same applies on the debate. Sometimes you need to jump in or join arguments that are not for you. Sometimes you need to fight the other team. Sometimes you need to present arguments that are so brave to the point where you might risk failing the argument, but at the same time, if you succeed, there's a small chance that you succeed. And if you do, you'll get the reward. So it is really worth it, risk and reward. Third one is convincing stakeholders. In business, stakeholders are referred to with the same name, stakeholders, and those are the ones that are responsible for probably your company succeeding or failing. You need to convince those people, the the ones you are negotiating with, the other company owners, the ones in higher positions, like I said, you need to be able to convince them, use persuasiveness and all of those things. And the same applies in debates, but you might ask the question, who are the stakeholders in debates? Is it the other team, your team, or the audience? No, in this case, it's the judges. Why? Because they are the ones who are going to decide whether you're going to win this debate or lose it. Same in business. And finally, we have crisis management. You might come through a lot of difficulties as a businessman. You might face market failures or the market prices going down or a war starting, wherever it is, that's a crisis. You need to have some management skills, be able to handle anything, no matter what. Same with negotiating. When you receive, as my friend here has stated, when you receive some difficult questions, you need to be able to manage the situation and answer correctly. Same applies on debates. Sometimes you can receive a very good argument from the opposite team, but you need to be able to manage your emotions and your knowledge at the same time so that you can give a very effective answer. And last but not least, I would like to add one more point, which is teamwork. Sometimes in debates, you need to debate in teams. So team working skills is really important. Same with the CEO, because as a CEO, you need to have a team. You need to have the team management skills. And those are 5 things that debaters and business owners have in common. Next. And here we have strategy for business owners use, and we're going to make a comparison between debaters and business owners, in this case, CEOs. And it goes by the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. We'll begin with strength. In debates, the strength is what makes the argument strong, is what makes the argument difficult for the opposite team to respond to. And in this case, that depends on how convincible the argument is, how many examples you include, how many stats, facts, and how often you use common sense in your argument. And the same applies on business. The company is a company's competitive advantage. So that's the strength. If you have advantage over other companies as a CEO, if you can see that, you have the strength to win more opportunities. And in debates, we have facts, stats, and common sense. In business, I think we have a lot of that. We need depends on your knowledge of the market, your networking skills. How many people do you know in the market? We're moving on to the weaknesses. In debates, what they use against you, what the other team has in pocket for you, the strong arguments that the others have, the facts they have, maybe the advantage over the topic. Sometimes the topic is not fair. Sometimes they have the advantage when it comes to the topic. So that's the weakness in debates. For business, internal business flows, and that depends again on the same factors Adish mentioned, which can be consistent of the networking, the people they know, internal business flows in basically, and advantages that the others might have over you. So that's a weakness. So third, we have opportunity. How the argument benefits others. This argument, if two teams are debating over something, there has to be a side that's going to benefit from the argument, and there has to be a side that's going to be affected by the argument. So that's the opportunity that somebody might win over your argument. Somebody might come to the conclusion that this thing is like this or that, and that's the result of your argument. Last but not least, for business, we have market expansion opportunities. That's the opportunity, and that's basically the goal of business. If you are starting a business, you're seeking opportunity. You seek to expand in the market. You seek to win more and gain more and lose less. And last but not least, like I said, we have threats. What if risks? What are the risks if we fail this debate? You might be competing in a competition. You might be doing the championship. You might be debating in teams. There are a lot of risks. So if you lose that one, you lose a lot. And the same applies on business. If you lose, if you take the risk, and sometimes you don't know how to manage the as I say, the crisis, you need to have some crisis management skills. If you don't know how to manage those, you will definitely fail. And there's a lot to lose in business. Maybe in debates there isn't a lot, but as a CEO, there's a lot to lose. Next.
All right, now let's see persuasion tactics. CEOs excel at persuasion. They convince stakeholders, they convince investors and entire teams, not just through manipulation, but also through credibility, through logic and emotional connection. In debates, applying these same tactics can make your argument stand out. Here's how: you frame your narrative, shape how your argument is perceived, present your stance as the most logical and the most morally sound choice. Lead the conversation, don't just react to it. Data and logic. Use facts to strengthen your credibility. But remember, don't overload your audience. Highlight the most impactful data and explain why it matters. Emotional appeal next. Facts persuade, but emotions inspire actions. CEOs often tell stories to create empathy. In a debate, use anecdotes, use relatable experiences, or ethical reasoning to connect with your audience. People remember stories. That's why storytelling is also an important factor. Instead of relying solely on abstract points, weave narratives that illustrate your argument. A well told story can be far more powerful than just a list of facts. Confidence and presence. CEOs project confidence through eye contact, through calm composure, and deliberate pauses. In a debate, your body language and tone can reinforce your message just as much as your words. By mastering these techniques, you'll not only argue effectively but also leave a lasting impact like a CEO. Next. Okay, next. Business negotiating techniques in debating. So now, knowing your fallback argument is a very important factor here. So you should know the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, because uh, like let's just take an example where a CEO is at a stakeholder meeting. Knowing what to fall back on forms an important point here. Mirroring, repeating a part of an opponent's argument to make them feel heard before countering is also considered quite necessary. Then
I will
consent.
very sorry, Jaisshna. I'll follow up on that.
Yes.
Mirroring, we have, like she said, repeating part of a part of an opponent's argument to make them feel heard. And that's very important while debating or business negotiating. If you make the opponent person or the person you're negotiating with feel heard, they will be more motivated to continue the argument with you or to continue the negotiating with you. In both cases, businesses and debates, and that's very important. If you do not apply that often, that might lead to the person you are debating with or negotiating with thinking that you are not hearing him well, and therefore he does not feel motivated enough to continue or to present new solutions or possibly present new opportunities for you or for him. And third, we have anchoring, which is setting an initial argument so that the debate moves in your direction. And that's something I often tell to people when doing the debate sessions often. The person with the most advantage, in my opinion, is the team for the topic, or the person going for the topic. That's the one who has more who has the better advantage of anchoring the argument, which means that he has the ability to lead it. Why? Because the second person has to respond to the first person. The team against the topic has to respond to the team for the topic. Therefore, they can't leave the same circle they have drawn. So if you are for the topic, you have the better advantage. But that doesn't mean that the people against the topic don't have the chance. They always have to. You need to force that opinion on them and lead the argument. That's a very good way to have things go in your way in debates. And in business, we don't have to tell you. If you are able to lead, if you have the ability to lead a negotiation, you're definitely winning that one. And last but not least, we have consistent strategies. Give up small points to win bigger arguments. Giving up small points to win bigger arguments is focusing on the most important. And sometimes you need to give very little because sometimes saying too much is just not the point or just not the thing you need to do to win debates. Because in most cases, people speak a lot. They say a lot of unnecessary things, which gives the other team more opportunity to refute and take down arguments. Next. If you want to add anything else, Jason.
That's it from my next slide. Okay, coming to risk versus reward. CEOs constantly face decisions that could either lead to massive gains or significant losses. Every product launch, every acquisition, or an investment requires evaluating whether the potential reward justifies the risk. This same approach applies to debating. In a debate, every argument you make is a business move. You're assessing whether it will strengthen your case or leave you feeling completely vulnerable. So, coming to high risk and high reward arguments, these are bold, controversial claims that, when well supported, can impress the judges and shift the debate in your favor. However, if it's not defended properly, they can backfire. CEOs often take these risks when they see a competitive advantage. You can do the same when you have a strong evidence or a compelling narrative. Then low risk and steady reward arguments. These are safer, well grounded points that add credibility to your case. They might not be as flashy, but they reinforce your position steadily. Think of it as a stable investment. It won't skyrocket your performance, but it will protect your standing. A CEO always asks, what's the worst that could happen and I can handle it? In debates, the same question applies. If the risk of making a bold claim is too high, consider a safer alternative. If the potential reward is worth it, be prepared to defend it under pressure. Ultimately, balancing risk and reward isn't just about playing it safe, it's about making calculated moves. The best debaters, like the best CEOs, know when to go all in and when to hold back. By thinking like a CEO, you'll become more strategic, you'll become more composed and more effective in your arguments.
And as a debater, just to continue to her speech, if as a debater you need to consider all factors, the other team, the people possibly in your team, and the judges. You need to think of all the possibilities. Are you ready to give that controversial opinion or argument? You need to consider, or you need to protect their response. You need to protect the other team's response and the judge's opinion. Maybe the judge is not going to look at it a specific way, and maybe he will. So you need to consider all possibilities before taking a risk in debate.
Yes, that's a valid factor.
And as you know, we have a lot of CEOs in the real world, real successful ones, and we can't deny the fact that they have used many negotiating skills, techniques, and all of those to succeed in the field. We named 3 examples, and the first is the one that almost everybody knows, Steve Jobs. He gave a speech when he first debuted the iPhone, and during the presentation, he was able to give one of the best presentations ever, according to some people that I've met before. They describe that one as the best presentation on internet. Why? Because he used small, simple, clear and engaging points that added to the presentation. If you look at the slides, we don't have the ability to display it now, but if you go on YouTube and search his presentation, you see that the slides he used are very simple. He used very simple slides to the point where he was able to have the audience engaging with him without adding any sentences in the slides. Maybe just a few ones, but that did not. So sometimes having very clear, small, and direct slides or points that you speak of can make the presentation very good, or the argument, or the convincing. And as you can see now, many years later, the iPhone is still one of the best-selling devices. And second, we have Elon Musk. During his speeches, he always uses the bold prediction tune, which means that maybe 10 years ago, during one of his presentations or conferences, he used good predictions. He's like, Tesla is going to be the best-selling company in 10 years. That's very bold. That's very brave to do. And he did it anyways. And that's why people were able to listen to him. That's what convinced people to listen to him. And by that, we can say that he challenged the reality. The reality says that people are not accepting electrical cars, but he was still able to convince a group of them. And now Tesla is one of the best-selling companies in the world, despite it being an electrical company selling electrical cars and not gas cars. And last but not least, we have Indra Nuya, and in her speech or his speech, he used emotional appeal with data. Sometimes using your emotion, sometimes affecting people emotionally can be a very good, but I do not personally advise you to do that in a debate. Maybe in the negotiations as a CEO, in the business negotiations, but in debates, because as judges, sometimes do not look very, are not always so pleased with people using emotions. With that, I mean that you need to sometimes support the emotion with clear data and very good arguments, evidence, and all of that, facts and statistics. So emotion alone is not sufficient, but it is very good thing to use. And by that, we can say that using these techniques that these real life CEOs have used, you will have a very good advantage in winning the debate or the negotiation.
All right. Coming to handling tough questions. Handling tough questions is often the most challenging yet rewarding parts of a debate. CEOs are constantly faced with high pressure questions from stakeholders, the media, and competitors. Their ability to respond calmly and strategically is what builds trust and confidence in their leadership. This applies the same to debates. When you face a difficult question, it's not just about having the perfect answer, it's about how you deliver it. Here's how you can approach it: stay calm and in control. A CEO never loses their composure, no matter how tough a question is. Similarly, you can, if a question catches you off guard, you can just take a moment. A few seconds of composure are far more powerful than a rushed and shaky answer. Remember, confidence is contagious. If you believe in your response, others will too. Then acknowledge and respect the question. Acknowledging a strong question shows that you're thoughtful and that you're a respectful speaker. Something like, that's a valid point. I appreciate you bringing it up, builds credibility and keeps the audience on your side. Even if the question challenges your stance, remember, remaining respectful demonstrates leadership. Next, bridge back to your message. CEOs often use a technique called bridging to steer the conversation back to their strengths. You can do the same in a debate. After acknowledging a question, pivot to a more stronger, the more favorable argument. Try something like, while that concern is understandable, it's important to consider, or that perspective is worth noting, but what's even more significant is, so that you can reinforce your key message. Never let a difficult question derail your overall argument. CEOs know when to keep their main message clear, even in challenging moments. After addressing the concern, always circle back to the core of your stance. Think of it as holding the reins of the conversation. Stay in control and lead the narrative. If a CEO does not have to answer a question, they admit it gracefully while focusing on what they do know. In a debate, it's perfectly fine to say, that's an interesting angle I hadn't considered. However, what I can say is, so when you say that, this showcases confidence, it showcases humility and adaptability. These are all traits of a strong debater.
And always remember, if you are the debater, if you are the one who researched the topic, if you are the one who prepared for it, make sure that, or be sure that you are the one with the most knowledge of the topic in the room, which means that you have the capability of answering any question no matter what, because you supposedly know more than the other person. Even if the question is tough, you still have the ability because you done the research, you are the one who prepared for it and not them.
Okay. Coming up to the key takeaways. As we wrap up our session, let's go over some key takeaways to keep in mind when applying CEO level strategies to your debates. Firstly, think strategically. Just let CEOs evaluate every move, approach your debates with a clear strategy, anticipate counter arguments, assess risks, and identify opportunities to strengthen your case. Apply the SWOT analysis. Identify what makes your argument strong. Acknowledge its weaknesses and be ready to mitigate potential threats while maximizing opportunities. Remember to balance risk and reward. Not every argument is worth pursuing. Consider whether a bold claim is worth the risk or if it's safer. And a well-supported argument might work better. Smart risk management makes your case way more resilient. Then master persuasion. Frame your narrative effectively. Use facts and logic to build your credibility and connect with your audience through storytelling and emotional appeal. CEOs understand their stakeholders, and you should understand your judges. Stay composed under pressure. Handling tough questions with confidence is a mark of a strong leader. Stay calm, acknowledge the question, bridge back to your key message, and reinforce your argument with clarity and composure. Then you have to lead the narrative. In both businesses and debates, the one who controls the conversation often has the upper hand. Be intentional about how you present your ideas and how you respond to challenges. Ultimately, debating like a CEO is about thinking on your feet, communicating persuasively, and navigating challenges with confidence. Keep practicing these strategies, and you'll see just how much they enhance your debating skills. Thank you all for being such an engaged audience today. I hope these insights empower you to debate like a CEO.
And now we will start receiving questions. We have, if you have any questions, please open up your microphone and. Yes. How would you recommend declining a question if you don't know about it? Like I said, if you are negotiating with a person, or most importantly, debating against somebody, I'd like to assume that you have researched something about it. But overall, you need to answer. It's not necessary to always give the correct answer, because especially when you're negotiating, there is no correct and incorrect answer. But you need to answer. There's no way you would just say, "I'm not gonna answer the question." That shows a lack of confidence. And if you claim to be a leader, you need to give an answer. It doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't, because in negotiating and debating, there is no yes and no. There is no correct and incorrect, true or false. No, but you have to give an answer. Let me give you an example. I was once in an interview and they gave you a question. They would give you a question, which is mostly asked in interviews, and they would ask you about your weakness. And they asked me, they say, "What was your weakness?" And that's a question I didn't really have an answer for because I did not prepare for it. But you need to say something. Otherwise, what I said was that every person has a weakness, and a person who does not admit his weaknesses is, of course, is not gonna be able to overcome this weakness or obstacles or barriers in the future. Therefore, you need to do this and that. I was just saying anything, but I did not give a correct answer. And after like a minute of saying nonsense, I finally found an answer. And the answer doesn't really have to be correct or conventional. You need to say something otherwise. You need to say something anyways. And what I said was that my weakness is when somebody in the team does not do his work and stuff like that. I said something. And in debates, you always need to say something because the judge, me as a judge, I'm gonna count it. If somebody asks you a question and you don't answer, I'm gonna think that you are unable to answer the question. Therefore, I'm gonna reduce a point as a judge. Okay? Any other question? Can we use case studies to appeal to emotions instead? Jaisshna?
Okay, so you can do that, but I'll answer this question in a different way. Okay, so you're asking, can we use case studies to appeal to your emotions? So from what case studies we've seen, it's mostly like people, coming up with a product or how they confidently handle their conflicts and everything. How they appeal to emotions, it basically handles the emotions of, reading the room, finding like how they appeal to their stakeholders, and how you appeal to your judges in case of debating, because we don't have any stakeholders here. And so yeah, basically you can appeal it to emotions, yes.
And one of the most important points is, as I think she mentioned, I think Jaisshna mentioned it at the very end, when you debate or when you negotiate as a CEO, you have a lot to lose. You are taking risks. You are risking losing money or losing position or whatever it is. You need to think like that in the debate. If you lose, you're losing a lot. You need to take things seriously. You need to be quick, writing down notes. You need to take things seriously when debating. And by that, you can generate arguments more efficiently and even more effective arguments while debating. So by taking things seriously, like a CEO does, simply having the mindset of a CEO during the debate, that gives you an advantage. Any other questions? I think we're done for now. And by that, we can say that our session for today is over. Thank you, everyone, and we hope that you benefited. We hope that you are able to apply everything we did, everything we mentioned. Just focus on the skills required and focus on taking things seriously and think like a CEO. And by that, you